Hello everyone, kia ora, bulavanaka, talofa lava, halo, kia orana, halo oketa, and a warm welcome to this Business Link Pacific webinar, Coming Out the Other Side as a Better Tourism SME. Thank you so much for joining us today from wherever you are in the world. Before we get started, I'd just like to make a couple of introductions and share some important information with you. If you haven't already done so, please take a moment to do this short survey. The link is posted in the chat box in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Your answers will be anonymous, but it will help inform our webinar presenter with her discussion points today. Just a few housekeeping rules. While the webinar is happening, please keep your microphone and camera on mute for the whole webinar, just so that we can make sure that we have a good internet feed for the entire session. If you need to leave partway through, that's not a problem. We will be sending a recording of the full webinar out later today, and that is for other people who can't attend at all as well. We'll have one Q&A session at the end of the webinar, but I do encourage you to put your questions into the chat box at any time during the webinar, and we'll ask them to our host at the end at about 2:45 p.m. Please type your questions in the chat box, and if possible, tell us your name or which organisation or business you are from. If we happen to run out of time for questions in either of the sessions, we will make a note of the question and email you privately with an answer after the webinar. So for those of you who have just recently joined the BLP network, either as a business advisor or a growing SME, or even if you've been with us for a while, and some of you who have already joined us on a few of our webinars before will have heard this spiel before, we just wanted to give you a quick refresher of what BLP is all about. So we are a Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade funded private sector development initiative delivered by DT Global. We currently work in 6 countries: Samoa, Fiji, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, and more recently the Solomon Islands and Cook Islands. In each of those countries, we work in partnership with financial institutions, the chambers of commerce, and the private sector. Our core objective is to develop a business advisory service provider network in the Pacific region that improves access of business services to growing SMEs. So we do this by offering 3 main services, which since we launched in 2017 have been developed, extended, and tailored to suit the Pacific business sector. We have an online business health check, which helps businesses identify where there are gaps that could benefit from business advice. We also have a more comprehensive business diagnostic, which is carried out by our in-country representatives and is a one-to-one version of the business health check. We have a searchable and growing database of over 60 BLP approved business advisors, all of who go through a quality assurance process to ensure that they're reliable, and this reduces the risk for our SMEs. Business advisors also get mentoring and coaching by our BLP consultants as well. We have a subsidy scheme with 3 types of subsidies. We have a regular subsidy of 50%, a special 70% subsidy for gender and social inclusion business advisors, and we have just recently released a 100% subsidy support package to help growing businesses who have been affected by the COVID-19 crisis. There's more information about this on our website. We've also just recently released the Online Business Continuity Planner, which we'll have a webinar about next week, and that's also a free online tool similar to the Business Health Check that helps identify areas that could benefit from business advice, with categories that are specifically around business continuity planning. So our webinar presenter today is Jennifer Bartlett. She's a business advisor for BLP. She's a private sector development advisor who specializes in the tourism sector and MSME development. She has almost 30 years of professional experience across 25 countries in Asia Pacific, Africa, North America, the Caribbean, Europe, and the Middle East, so basically all over the globe. She has managed or advised on tourism and MSME projects in the Pacific since 2001. She consults for BLP on a part-time basis and works with our in-country business service managers to provide strategies and tools to support their work in country. She also conducts business advisor competency assessments. Jen is here today to share her expertise on things tourism SMEs in the Pacific can do during this uncertain time to prepare for the future. Welcome, Jen.
Thanks, Anusha. Thank you so much. It's kia ora, bulavinaka, talofa lava, kia orana, hello, and I guess bonjour as well for our francophones in Vanuatu. It's a pleasure to be joining the BLP webinar series and to talk about a subject that's close to my heart, and I expect for all of you on there close to your heart as well. Given that we're in these unprecedented times and that the recovery for the tourism sector really is remains uncertain for us, and it's really out of our control. We can't forecast what's going to happen, and to do so would be pure speculation. But what we can do, what we can control at the moment is, I guess, to remain optimistic that the tourism industry will eventually recover, and to make the most of the time we have now to prepare for that recovery, and to try and make sure that when we come back as businesses, we come back even stronger. So today I'm going to focus on some really practical tips on things that we can do. And they're structured around three key things. The first around steps that you could take to strengthen your product and service, and overall to improve the visitor experience to attract visitors in the future, and to satisfy future markets. The second, looking at ways to enhance your marketing and promotion leading up to that recovery time. And finally, overall ways to improve your business management. Some of the ideas I share, you may well be already doing. It's look at that then as a bit of a verification and a checklist that you're on the right track and doing the best under the circumstances. And I hope that with other ideas, they might prompt some things you can be doing with the downtime. And I acknowledge too that it might not be downtime, it might be downtime for business, but there's a lot of other obligations that might be taking time. So this is where we're not running the business 24/7, keeping in mind that there are opportunities to do things that we don't usually have time for. So starting with strengthening your products or services, there's 5 steps that I think it would be helpful maybe for you to consider. The first being to research your target market feedback and preferences from the past. Second, to build your understanding of tourism standards and requirements. Use this opportunity to strengthen your understanding of those. Then from that, identify ways that you can improve the visitor experience. Take action on priority improvements that you can do now or close to when it's time to reopen, and then to include all new ideas for product development in a business plan. So I'll quickly talk through those 5 steps and things that you can possibly do. First of all, if of course most businesses are already reviewing their client feedback, but this is a good opportunity to really study those reviews, whether it's through surveys that you operate yourself, through a visitor book, through online reviews on TripAdvisor or Booking.com. Really study those and identify what is it that people are appreciating and loving about your tourism offering, and what are the themes in terms of what needs improvement, and really make note of those. At the same time, look at your competitors' reviews online and see what their customers are appreciating or having concerns about, and it really will give you an insight into what your target market preferences are. To complement that, it's also worthwhile looking at similar businesses that inspire you. They might be in your country, they might be in a neighbouring region, or further afield. And to find those that you think are model businesses, and to check out their online reviews. What is it that customers are loving about their product? And to take notes of what they're offering. It might be the aesthetics, or how they present their product. It might be the sort of things that they offer and menus, etc. Now, when I say that, I'm talking about inspiration, not copying ideas that aren't conducive to the specific context and the authentic nature of the area and the culture that you operate in, but to get some inspiration and to see that how others do it and how they do it well, and how you could adapt that for your own business, bearing in mind if that's what travelers and travelers, the sort of travelers that you want to attract, what they appreciate. Further to that, it's timely, and I'm sure that most businesses already do this, so forgive me if I'm sat in the office, but we often don't have time to keep up to date on the emerging preferences and needs of travelers. And these will be market specific, but there also will be emerging needs and preferences as a result of COVID. And the first point of call, of course, being your local tourism bodies, whether that be, and then it's the arrangement is different in each country, of course, but the ministry, the National Tourist Office, and or the industry associations. Make sure you keep an eye on their websites, on their social media, on their communications, and even talking to their staff. And this is important to find out what's happening about the markets that you operate in general, but and learning about what those the market preferences are. Tourism Fiji are doing, I think it's a weekly or fortnightly, it might be weekly markets update, which is and it's on their website, the webinars for that are on their website, valuable resource. So keep an eye on those websites and pick up the phone to the associations and ask them what information is available or might be coming. Similarly, at the regional global level, there are some great websites to look at. It's easy to get overwhelmed with the volume of tourism research and information, so I don't want to risk that happening, but some that I find particularly useful, I guess at the regional level for you, the South Pacific Tourism Organisation, a bit further afield, PATA, the Pacific Asia Travel Association, and then globally, the UNWTO. They've actually made some of their resources available for free. So there's it's worth doing a bit of an online search of those kind of agencies and seeing what's available, seeing what market intelligence, and so you can understand what different travelers might want. And importantly, if you're in particular focusing on an adventure traveler, finding out what the Global Adventure Tourism Association are saying about what their markets want. So there are also some niche-based regional and global groups that have great market intelligence on preferences. And also industry, media and distribution partners. There's a lot out there. It's easy to get overwhelmed. I find that I subscribe to Skift newsletter and then the Travel Weekly, and that gives some really good market intelligence. It's a bit of a test to see what is, subscribe to a few things, and then you can sort of unsubscribe to the ones that aren't as helpful for you. But I think there's some great industry media out there that's valuable to learn. Even if you're running a very small business, there's some really great data out there. With all of that information and understanding your clients to date, your competitors or the client or inspirational product clients, and then understanding what the needs are by market, by whether it's by geography, preferences, and not only preferences, which geographic markets are looking like that they're going to recover first. And like I said, we can't forecast and project, but we're all crossing our fingers that this trans-Tasman bubble that will involve Australia, New Zealand, and hopefully the Pacific Islands will be the first mover post-COVID. So understanding which markets are most likely to recover first, and helping that information, not only the market information about what they want, what's suited to your particular product, but also what's suited to your destination in terms of what's recovering. So it's good to reconsider your target markets, target segments. It might be the same as before, but it might take a little bit of tweaking. In addition to thinking about the market preferences, it's building your understanding of the tourism standards requirements that apply in your country. Now, where they exist, businesses are required to comply in any case. Look at this as an opportunity to get up to date on those standards and guidelines and seek advice on maybe this is a chance to look at how you can aspire to even take the standards higher, to look at the next level up, and just do a bit of a self-audit on where you're achieving standards and where formal standards and where you could actually make some improvements. Similarly, the distribution partner requirements, for example, the travel wholesalers or online booking agents, what sort of requirements they have and their standards for inclusion in their program. It's a good opportunity to get a sense of what's out there, self-audit, and see where you can improve. Once you've considered done that market research about preferences and looked at what you can improve on, it's a matter of prioritizing how can you actually strengthen the visitor experience for your clients. And that might be through offering new products or services or facilities that will appeal to them. It might be through aesthetics. There might be feedback for properties, a lot of feedback about cleanliness or the properties being tired. This is looking at aesthetics and decor and design. Identifies customer service that you might need to improve. The food and beverage offerings, housekeeping practices, and this is something, the food and beverage offering, housekeeping practices and health and safety systems, there's going to be changes that are needed here. This is inevitable post-COVID, even though the Pacific Islands is so fortunate in that it's seen as a safe destination and it hasn't, in terms of not having the prevalence of COVID. The travel market is going to be so vigilant about cleanliness, and this is going to affect everything that businesses do wherever they are in the world about housekeeping practices and changes in practices to buffets and food and beverage service. So a lot of the big hotel brands have already got systems and changes in place, and this will be something that's important to watch through your ministries and tourism industry associations who are likely to lead guidance on this particular area relevant to your country. Another area to think about where you might prioritize are your sustainability practices. I think there's a lot of businesses doing some really great things in the Pacific Islands already. It's a good chance to look at, well, what could you improve on that, particularly in terms of what the market is expecting and the new normal. The people are there's indications that it's health and safety, but also the new normal and protecting our planet being more important than ever. So these are just some examples, but it's really going to depend on the first steps and what you identify needs some improvements. And when it comes to these ideas, I guess at the very least, to run them by a trusted associate, someone who knows the tourism industry, but even more importantly, when you can reach out to a professional in whatever aspect of product development you're looking at. That's obviously the smartest thing to do before investing any time or effort into changes. So where you can, at this point, recognizing that cash flow is an issue and resources and human resources are an issue, it's whatever you can do to fix those immediate priorities that can improve the visitor experience so that you're ready to go when people return. And I think that key things here are, I would be undertaking the biggest spring clean and refreshing the decor if I were having a business, and really making sure that everything looks fresh and clean for returning guests. Maintaining, of course, keeping up with landscaping and maintenance, potentially redefining customer service protocols and the new sanitation protocols I mentioned before. And if you haven't been getting a lot of customer feedback, this might be a time to redesign how you collect that feedback, how you might do it on site, through surveys, or how you might respond to TripAdvisor postings and things like that, to really think through that, how you manage that feedback, collect and use that feedback in the future. So again, whatever remedial actions you have or preparation for the post-COVID world are going to depend on your findings in step 1 and step 2. And again, engaging professionals as necessary. And I think that cartoon sums up very much what happens for people who try to, it's good to be able to learn and identify a lot of things yourself, but it's almost important to bring in the professionals as relevant. And then in the other step for strengthening your products and services is around including product development in your business plan. So we talked about some of the immediate things that you can do, but when you're thinking bigger, when you're thinking, okay, here are some different markets that are emerging that might have potential, when you have bigger product development ideas, make sure to include them in a business plan. I often see business plans and then people talk about their plans to scale up or to develop a new product, but aren't actually in the business plan. So I'll talk a little bit more about business plan towards the end, but that's a really important time that your business plan updates if you've revised the target markets. And when you revise them, you won't be able to go away today and do that, because a lot of this will be waiting for information as it comes to hand. So make sure your business plan addresses that, new products and services or facilities and experience, and the more medium to long-term priorities. Now, we have a Business Link Pacific has a business plan checklist that you can get from your in-country business services managers, but I'll touch on that at the end as well. So as a bit of a snapshot, there's some key things that you could be doing and to think about how you strengthen your products and services. To get into detail would be probably hours of consultation that might be best left to a conference if you want to look into this with a business advisor. But that's just some ideas to think about. Before I go on to the next one, I might just do a quick check-in with Anusha just to see, so that I can tailor to our audience, to see who is what the survey results so far, and so I know what type of businesses we have online.
Great, thanks, Jen. We've got a few responses in so far, and if you haven't had a chance to take the survey yet, the link for this is in the chat box. It's only 2 questions. It'll take you like a minute to do it, and it will help Jen tailor her presentation today. So far, the first question is, which Pacific Island are you based in? We have equal footing with 28.6% of people from the Fiji, and 28.6% from Samoa. And then we also have 14.3% from PNG, 1 from New Zealand, and 1 from Vanuatu. And then what best describes the business you operate? So we're at the moment 57.1% business advisors. Oh, it's just changed as I'm speaking. 50% business advisors, 25% tourism industry accommodation, 12.5% tourism industry tour operator or attraction, and 12.5% tourism industry other.
Great, thanks, Anusha. And I should have mentioned as well, if you have questions as we go, please enter them into the chat box. I'm proposing that we have the questions at the end, because some of the early questions do relate to the managing the business part at the end, but we will address those later on if that suits. All right, so looking at enhancing your marketing and promotion. So again, 5 steps here to consider, and this first one does relate somewhat to the point I said earlier about keeping up to date with market preferences and what the segments that you've been targeting what they want out of a destination, what they want out of an experience. So this is an important time to look at your own business customer profiles and figure out, well, who has been coming to date. And if you don't have a good sense of that, about installing systems, and they don't need to be technological systems, of course, are better, but even manual systems to find out, well, so that you can start tracking your own customer profile and analysis, where they're from, and what sort of activities they do when they're with you, that type of thing. And then keeping up to date on those evolving market trends from the National Tourist Office or other local tourism industry, market research resources, and other regional global resources that are available. And then using that information about what you already know about your existing customers and what you know about what's emerging and when certain markets are likely to come back to your country, to redefine them. And then to define, and if you haven't already done this, I know a lot of businesses have, so forgive me if it's stating the obvious for those who have, but defining who your target markets are going forward, geographic, the demographic, what the profile of those people are, families, maybe couples, retirement couples or couples on honeymoon, etc., for a lot of accommodation, and the psychographic, what type of person, what are they, and that's often where it overlaps with the niche segments. Maybe they're adventure travelers, maybe they're seeking a wellness tourism experience, but to really sit down and think about how you describe your target clients, your existing, and maybe your existing are all that you're targeting, but maybe there are other opportunities based on that market research that you've done. To build your knowledge of online marketing and social media. Now, of course, some people are gurus at this already and could teach the rest of us. But to really, I find a lot of tourism SMEs haven't had the time or would rather outsource the online marketing and social media aspects of marketing, and that's natural because there's a million things to do when you're running a tourism business. But I would suggest that if there is downtime now, that this is the time to get up to speed. And last week's digital transformation webinar that Business Link Pacific ran had some really great tips. If you weren't able to see that, you can give us your email address and we'll send you the link so that you can watch it. But that was a great start. YouTube and Google are your best friend. They can to Google depending on how much knowledge you have, everything you need to know. There's some great 101 of social media and marketing online. You could get really technical and do an online course through Coursera or edX. But it's also really important that it's good to arm yourself with the knowledge on how these things work, but execution really needs professionals in most cases. And so when you've got a bit of a sense of how things work and what's what, it's good to consult with a professional to figure out what you can do yourself versus what really needs to be outsourced to an expert. Now's also the time to develop or improve the marketing plan. So based on, as we've discussed, the new market research information you might get, any redefinition of target markets. And if you haven't got a marketing plan, well, it's a good time to develop one. And one that, most importantly, check that it aligns with your business goals. Sometimes marketing plans don't necessarily look like how they're going to deliver what the business plan goals are. So that's a critical checklist, I would suggest. And these points are actually on Business Link Pacific's marketing checklist, so we can share that if anyone needs that. Having some very specific objectives, and that they have to be, I guess, really realistic as well, and what you're going to see, what your results are in a few years' time. Defining your target markets and segments with rationale for those. Why? What's the evidence that you've determined that those markets and segments are the right ones for your business? Being able to really articulate your unique selling proposition. So doing a competitor analysis so that you know you're able to say that in a sentence, one sentence or two max. The marketing plan should identify your price points for your products, and particularly now that we're in this position, any specific packages that you will offer going forward. And this is a really critical and challenging time where businesses could fall into the trap of discounting. And I think having done a lot of work in post-crisis, post-conflict and post-disaster situations, that's often can be the nail in the coffin for a product and even for a destination. to discount, and it can be a race to the bottom. So it's really about being smart in developing those packages that will encourage the market to come back, but without setting a precedent that damages the value of the business. So this is where those first steps I talk about improving the visitor experience and bringing up the quality, are the most critical things here, not trying to sell on price alone. And I'm sure that your national tourist officers and industry associations will talk a lot more about this as it gets back into marketing the destination in the near future. The marketing plan should also articulate your brand. What does your brand represent? And beyond the logo, what is the values? What is the sense that the feeling and the response it creates that your target market think about your business, and how you will visually present that in all of your marketing. Time to ensure that your marketing plan identifies the most cost-effective marketing channels to reach your target markets, and to look at all of the channels that are out there, you know, social media and digital media, traditional, might be sponsorship and partnerships, cross promotion, all of those. What's the most cost-effective for you, for your business? And then to get to the point where you can, an ideal marketing plan would have a schedule of what advertising and promotion is planned for the coming at least a year, and budgeting that, having a dollar figure, knowing what that will look like. And of course, having those objectives with some indicators of what you know success is like. What return on investment do you want for every dollar you spend, or dollar, or as relevant, on marketing? How many, how much return is that in visitor spend? So that's an example of the key things a marketing plan you might look at if you're doing or updating your marketing plan. And again, marketing plan expertise is available in the Business Link Pacific network of business advisors, and so I would encourage you to reach out to those businesses. And to keep engaged with destination partners. The collaboration is critical here. Keeping engaged and supporting and working with each other is more important now than ever. And I mean, that Kati really does sum it up. It's your competitors are your partners in this instance as well. It's all about building back the destination first. How can we get people attracted there, and then making sure that your product is meeting what the market wants as well. So talk to your national tourist officers and industry associations about what you can do as an individual business, how you can leverage what their plans are. I think it's a good conversation to have would be to talk to the tourist officers about the destination marketing that they're doing, and how you can work alongside that as a business. So I would be picking up the phone to the National Tourist Office and having a conversation with them. And I'll give you a couple of examples in a moment, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but how you can leverage those efforts. And also asking about what resources and training, etc., might be available. And I think this is an important time as well to let those associations and agencies know what kind of training you want, because if there's a critical mass of people seeking having the same kind of need, then it might be something that could be considered in a future program. So make sure you share your needs with them in relation to marketing or anything else as well. I talked about engaging with destination partners, and I think that it relates very much with to the next slide, which is keeping engaged with clients and using social media and email to keep connected with your business clients and your customers. Now, this is where your national tourist officers are doing a really great job in keeping engaged with the clients at a destination level. And if this can sort of inspire you to do this at a business level, it really is a good way to keep engaged with those customers that already have an interest, those people who've already visited your property, or maybe following you on Facebook and have made inquiries in the past. And just, I mean, these messages really do have impact. When someone's sitting in cold Australia or New Zealand at the moment, for example, I can speak on behalf of there, and seeing messages like, for Samoa, beautiful, will always be here. And for Fiji, Sotatale, stay safe and we will see you soon. These are, Vanuatu will keep it beautiful for you. These are really compelling messages that really identify with the tourism market more than I've ever seen before. And it really does tug the heartstrings, and people want to come back. So I think if you can have a think about, from your perspective as a business, how you can, through social media, tell a similar story, and maybe talk to your National Tourist Office about how you can even work with their messaging and reinforce their messaging with your own. So that's, and the other, I received an email. We've got to be careful, I guess, in terms of not overwhelming people with emails, but there was a property that I stayed in and had a really great time, and talked to the manager, got to know them really well. And I got an email saying, it was 12 months ago that you stayed. We really miss you, and we hope you're safe during this time. And they had a picture, and it was just, made me think, I really want to go back there. So I think managing without spamming people, but thinking about those kind of clients that you can engage with and let them know that you're there and waiting. So there's some marketing tips. In terms of, I guess, overarching all of that, business management does include product development and operating a business, to make sure the visitor experience is great. It also includes marketing, but just I'll put as a third step, as a third area rather, steps to improving your business management overall. Now, this is a subject that's worthy of several webinars, so I'm going to touch really quickly on these. But 5 key things I'd like to bring up today are, as a start, if you haven't already, to complete Business Link Pacific's Business Health Check or the Business Continuity Planner. This is an important time to identify your financial management weaknesses and the priorities that stem from that. It's also an important time, if you haven't recently, to review your organizational management structures, the processes and tools that you use. Also, a good time to consider your staff management priorities for the future. And finally, to update your business plan, circling back to what we talked about earlier. The first is the Business Link Pacific's Business Health Check or Business Continuity Planner. These are great tools as a start, and of course, this is where when a particular need is identified, referrals are suggested to business advisors who have the skill to address that particular priority. If you've done these and you feel that you need even more detailed diagnostic, there is a diagnostic tool report that our business services managers in country can complete for you as a subsequent step to this. But we recommend you go through this and then determine if further detailed analysis is needed. So that would be the starting point, I think, for reviewing what you need to do to improve your business management practices. That step will to cover off to a certain degree these points that I'm going to raise, but one of the most critical things, and it's I guess never been a more challenging time for many businesses, simply because of the excuse me, the fact that there isn't the revenue coming in. So addressing cash flow issues as a priority, and there are a bunch of online resources to understand the basics. If you haven't had good cash flow management practices before, we had a Managing Cash Flow webinar for Business Link Pacific last week. Again, if you want to see that, let us know and we can send you the link. The webinars will be available online on the website soon, but for now, just email us. Ensure you have a realistic budget for the future. Have you got a budget, and is it realistic? It's possibly time to revisit that or prepare one of those. It's time to look at your accounting software. Is it optimal for your business? And is the accounting software talking to your booking software for tourism businesses to make sure that they run in parallel? To get up to speed on producing and analysing your financial reports, it might be something that you outsource to an accountant already, which is great. If it's a chance for you to understand those better, use this time to make sure you do, or if you're doing it internally, to make sure that your financial reports are all up to date. Similarly, if you don't have historical financial records, one exercise I did go through with a client as a result of a natural disaster, they didn't have the financial records, and it was a manual task of going through all of their bookings and estimating, what their income was based on rates and number of customers through the restaurant. And that was it was important for them. They actually were able to use that data for getting finance later, but they didn't have any historical financial records. So if time permits, and if you don't have them, this is a really important chance to figure out, to look at what resources you do have in terms of bookings, to determine what the revenue has looked like. The other reason this is important to do now and to ensure going forward is, with the incidence of natural disasters, the economic losses to businesses, it's getting more and more important to have a indication of what business losses are happening. And you're probably finding that now. How much business has been lost in the month of March, April, May, and a lot of businesses haven't been able to say that because they didn't know what business they lost in the years prior. So this is critical to start recording that, so you know what business you might typically get and what may have been lost, because a lot of that can inform recovery programs to support businesses. To do your financial projections for various scenarios, this is going to be particularly tricky because we don't know, but it would be a good time to sit down and think, okay, if travel does resume in the region by August, then what can we expect to look at? It's really going to be a lot of guesstimating, but to start doing your financial projections, and then slowly, as information becomes more credible, you can get to more realistic financial projection scenarios. And of course, a Business Link Pacific approved accountant is going to be your best friend in through much of those tasks. If it gets to the point where you don't have that skill, you can teach yourself some of the basics so that you understand it better. But this is it's definitely something you want to get a professional on board for as well. It's a good time to review your organizational management structures, processes, and tools. And it's to ask yourself now whether you have the most productive work processes in place, whether you have the most efficient organizational structures in place, whether you're doing the most sustainable practices and have the most efficient resources in place from a sustainability perspective, and whether you've got adequate equipment or tools to run the operation. These are critical questions to ask yourself. And if you think no, or if you're not even sure, then it really is a time to seek a business advisor who can help you with any of those particular aspects. It's also a good time, and it's a difficult time, obviously, from a staff management perspective, but it's a good time to consider what your staff management priorities are for the future. Now, I believe there might be a human resources webinar coming up in a few weeks' time with Business Link Pacific, which will explore this a bit further. But just as some top line thoughts now, to think about what were the issues that prevailed pre-crisis with staffing. With staff behaviours or staff management issues, and start identifying those and thinking, well, what solutions could be in place? Keeping up to date on changes in employment law and government support for employment via keeping up to date to that through the relevant ministry and the industry associations, because that could be a changing area, and obviously there's measures in place to protect employers and employees, and it's a very sensitive time, and making sure that you can do your best to protect your most valued asset as a staff, but at the same time make sure that your business is is able to sustain the costs of doing that. And I know a lot of people have had to lay off staff, which is an awful situation to face. As alluded to in the previous slide, consider the efficiencies of the current staff structure. It's a good time to ensure all the job descriptions are up to date. Maybe think about what makes a business an employer of choice. So this is another where Google is your friend. Find out what it is that people value with an employer, and think what you can do. And it will be context specific, but think about what you can do and how you can aspire to be an employer, a business that people really want to work for in your country, and what changes you might need to make. In doing so, of course, identify staff training needs. That might come out of that first slide in terms of, the customer feedback. Might identify that if there's customer service training or food and beverage training needed, but figure out what you need and figure out what's available through local providers, which may be evolving as well now that there's response to the particular crisis. There's different courses becoming available, whether it's locally or online, or maybe there's a way you can deliver training to your own staff, and which a lot of you already do anyway. It might be if you've had to put off staff, there might be an opportunity for you to, if you've got the internet, to allow those staff to come in and use the internet to do some training online if they haven't got internet access at home, but doing what you can to help them build their skills. And again, we have human resource experts in the Business Link Pacific network who can give you the really specific advice on these issues and others that you might come up with as you do a bit of an audit yourself. And circling back to what I raised earlier about updating your business plan, when I mentioned earlier, it was about making sure that any new ideas you have for product development, to have new facilities or services or experiences for guests, to make sure that your business plan includes those. And here are a number of other things to make sure that when you update your business plan that you've adequately addressed. Make sure again that it lists very realistic business goals and specific strategies on how they will be achieved, and that they should be based on analysis of your business strengths and weaknesses, of course, the determination of your unique selling proposition, the evidence of market demand. Of course, that is in the marketing plan, but that really does need to inform the business plan. So that the evidence is there and that the identification of those markets that your business is going to serve, and the assessment of internal and external risks. So the plan needs to be based on those, and it also should include specific plans for scaling up the business and product development, the pricing strategies, again, that they're sustainable pricing strategies, that in the recovery period that there's rationale for wide price differentiation and avoiding avoiding the race to the bottom in terms of discounting. Including sales forecast scenarios, and based on some of the earlier slides, incorporating the business management structures and any business continuity measures that you have into that business plan. So again, we have the Business Link Pacific business plan checklist that you can get from your in-country business services managers, that are a checklist for those sort of things. But it's also something that a business advisor is best positioned to help you with. So you'll see that there's so many pieces of the tourism jigsaw and the tourism recovery jigsaw that I've touched on those areas quite high level, and it really depends on your specific business and business needs what detailed advice will help you through this time. But hopefully that prompts some ideas. I think the three sort of key messages to get across is that there are a bunch of free helpful resources, and there's a time for learning, building your knowledge about all different aspects of running the tourism business that you haven't had time to do. Secondly, that your national tourist offices and tourism industry associations and ministries, however the arrangement might be in your country for product development, industry development and marketing, that it's a really good, important time to monitor what they're doing, to engage with them and to seek their advice. And thirdly, that when it comes to making changes, to I guess the strategic part of changes and how to implement those, that professionals are the ones to reach out to, and that Business Link Pacific has a network of professionals. We're very conscious of the fact that cash flow is troubling. Budget is difficult for businesses at any time, let alone now. So of course that subsidy that Business Link Pacific offers is more important now than ever. But I do hope that those ideas either validate that what you're doing is the right thing, or give some new ideas, prompt some new thoughts of things you could be doing. We'll open up for questions now, but also if you did want specific information on any of the things that I've raised, I would encourage you reach out to the business services managers or myself. You can reach out through them, and we can answer some immediate questions for you, and or refer you to others who can. So I suspect I shall stop sharing now.
Thanks, Jen. That's really, really great presentation, and so many tips and pieces of advice for our tourism SMEs to either try out or continue doing. It's really, I'm sure, very, very validating for all the people that have attended today and all who will watch this webinar at a later date as well. We do have a couple of questions, firstly from Marita Manley, who's based in Fiji. She says to you, really valuable and reassuring to hear your insights on pricing and providing more value rather than discounting. Would you have any recommendations, particularly in terms of the domestic market with regard to that? She's in Fiji.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you. Very good question. And I did actually have a point in my head to talk about the domestic market. And I think I skipped over that. Yeah, so it is, and probably more for Fiji, I think, and perhaps PNG for domestic travel is a opportunity that you have now. I think because with the domestic market, there's traditionally been the cheaper domestic rates. I mean, it depends on the business and the product, but I imagine that it applies to domestic as well. Like setting a precedent for discounting rates too much could be problematic for the domestic market. The opportunity to package up and encourage longer stays, rather than 6 nights for a discounted rate would be the way that I would go about doing it, whether it be for the domestic or international market, just to make sure that it's not declining your revenue per room too much. But with the domestic market as well, the opportunity, and I'm sure that many of you are already doing this, but those who have relied a lot on the international, but opening up more for domestic market, more the restaurants in the hotels for takeaway food, that sort of thing. I know some businesses have been doing that, diversifying their offering. But yeah, I think the discounting applies across the board. I would encourage you to talk to get the industry advice from your industry association and National Tourist Office on what their recommended response is, because it will vary from country to country depending on the size of the local market, the local travel market, and the nature of lockdowns.
Great, thank you, Jen. We've got another question here, and this will be right up your alley because you've worked in the tourism sector and advised the tourism sector for quite a long time. So from your experience of working with tourism businesses in the Pacific, do you have any good examples of businesses that have bounced back after natural disasters, or in this case, a man-made disaster?
Yeah, I have. I've seen it. In fact, it's probably a bit of a sad story to share, but and we don't have, Tonga isn't in the network, but I had an email the other day from business that bounced back after Cyclone Peter that I worked with personally to develop their business, and unfortunately, that's actually faced the challenge now of Cyclone Harold, and they're having to start again. But the spirit of recovery, I think it's taught people, and I do find in the Pacific that people don't get beaten down easily, and they're very resilient, and they confidently build back. Yeah, so I mean, in the Caribbean as well, I just find it's the nature of tourism businesses that do. I was recently doing some work up in Vanuatu, and after Winston, I think the majority of properties had recovered and built back, and it was reassuring and surprisingly reassuring of the number that had, and there were only a couple that didn't. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I've only seen mostly good news stories. And they build back better. I mean, I know it's a cliche, but they do build back better.
Awesome. Okay. And one final question, and I guess we'll be sending information like this out to everybody after the webinar anyway, but you can probably give us a really good quick overview of how BLP is supporting tourism businesses impacted by COVID-19. I think you might have touched on that a little bit with the subsidy.
Yes, yes, indeed. So with a lot of the services that I've talked about here would be eligible for the 50% subsidy for business advisors. The 100% subsidy that relates specifically to COVID recovery, it's not for all. It's not for every type of business advisory service, but for those that are specifically related to the recovery. I'm not sure if one of my Business Link Pacific colleagues want to supplement what I'm saying, but I think for a lot of the marketing, the product development advice that I was giving, the human resource management, those services, if it's with a Business Link Pacific approved advisor, would be eligible for the 50% subsidy.
Yeah, that's right, Jen. And we also, at the moment, I mean, since the COVID-19 pandemic has hit, we have released a 100% subsidy package for businesses that have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is specifically for help around business continuity and crisis communication. And there is more information about that on our website, and I'll be sending out more information with our webinar recording as well, so you can get a more comprehensive look at that. So we've hit 3:05, and we'll probably just try and close down the webinar now. Jen, I'll hand it back to you one last time if you have any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience.
Thanks, Anusha. I would just encourage, if there are some other questions, we'll take note of those and reply back. Please reach out to your in-country representatives. I know some of whom have worked in tourism before, so they're also very knowledgeable about the field, and we can follow up to those requests separately. But thank you all for joining, and I do hope that it's been of some use.
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar today. And Jen, thank you so much. This has been amazingly informative. So many tips and doable pieces of advice for tourism SMEs. So I'm sure that all our attendees today found your presentation extremely valuable and in many ways very, very reassuring. And I think reassurance is extremely meaningful at this time for a lot of businesses. So we really appreciate your expertise and taking the time out to offer guidance on this topic. You've given given out and mentioned a lot of different resources, and we'll make sure that we put them all into our webinar recording email after this. If you need to get in touch either with Jen or with one of your in-country representatives, I'll put those details in the email as well. If you have any other further questions, you can contact me on media@businesslinkpacific.com, and I can forward your information or your question over to Jen or one of the in-country representatives. We have another webinar next week at same time, 2 p.m. New Zealand Standard Time, and this one will be hosted by our BLP Director, Steve Knapp, and he'll be presenting a how-to guide on our new essential business tool, the Business Continuity Planner, and an invite for that will be going out tomorrow morning. So we do encourage you to attend that webinar next week, and please do share this with your networks as well. It'll be a good one. Apart from that, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you all next week. Goodbye.